Betting Public Sports Show. We're here on Monday, April 17th, 2023, and we're sitting here with frequent guest, the backstop, the receiver of the Betting Public Sports Show, the great Mr. Carl Nichols. How you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. Again, we appreciate you spending some time to talk some Major League Baseball with us. For those of y'all don't know, Mr. Nichols here, he's a 7-year vet of the Major League Baseball?
Parts of 6 seasons, yeah.
Okay, parts of 6 seasons. Former catcher and outfielder. He's from Compton, y'all. You know, he was junior high classmates with DJ Yella of NWA fame. and he grew up playing ball with the likes of Darryl Strawberry and Eric Davis. You know, and if you're from, you know, either Queens, New York or Cincinnati, Ohio, you're a huge fan of either of those guys. We'll talk a little bit about them. We're talking about another guy from Cincinnati that he may know, Ken Griffey Jr. And he's gonna just, you know, usually when he comes on, folks, he gives the kids tips and parents about, you know, his coaching exploits and whatnot. But today we might talk a little greasy, so this might not necessarily be all the kids for this one. But you okay with that, Mr. Nichols?
I'm fine, yes.
All right. Now when we last left off, you were telling us that you almost caught Rickey Henderson on the bases. You know, tell us about what happened. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I definitely remember it. Yeah, he just, you know, when he gets on base, he's fearless. So he doesn't care who's pitching or catching. He's going to go. So we were playing in Baltimore. He was just when he's with the Yankees. You know,
so this is Jerry Carroll Rickey. You know what?
Yeah. He had the Jerry juice flowing. Yep. And you know, he took off. I made what I thought was one of my better throws, and it was bang bang. And you know, at that time I was a rookie, so you know, of course, he was who he was, and you know, I guess I got the rookie treatment. I thought he was out. Umpire called him safe, so you know, I just had to live with it. I actually saw him later that night at a restaurant. And, you know, we were talking, and I told him, I said, dude, you were out tonight. And he's, you know, without missing a beat, he said, dude, he said, I'm the Kang. You can't throw out the Kang. Just like that.
Oh, so Rickey used to talk greasy to people.
Yeah, you know, because he always talks in third person. So, you know, you can't throw out the Kang. So I just, you know, he didn't say King, he said Kang, K-A-N-G. So, you know, I just had to suck it up and take it.
Right. I understand. So wait a minute. I thought he cleared this up. So you telling me that John Olerud story might be true then?
It's definitely true.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. You know, he was at the they were playing on Boston, I believe.
No, originally they played together in Toronto.
Right.
And then they played again together in New York with the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Olerud wore a helmet on defense.
Right.
He had brain surgery when he was in college, so he always wore a helmet on defense. And I guess Rickey, when he came over, he said, hey, you know, he's talking to him. He said, hey, I played with a guy in Toronto who used to wear a helmet on defense. And, you know, yeah, that was me. So.
I mean, you know, now Rickey, if I understand, you probably remember he was like a legendary high school athlete in California. Like, wasn't he originally signed with USC
as a running back?
Yeah. They picked up as a running back.
Yeah,
it was him, Charles White, and then the last signee was Marcus Allen. And when Marcus Allen signed, Rickey said, "Nah, I'll play baseball." Does that sound accurate?
I didn't hear that part of the story, but I do know he was committed to USC as a running back. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
He was signed up to tailback you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your nephew, Ray Lankford. I mean, how much older are you than him?
5 years.
5 years. I mean, did you kind of, is that your sister's boy or?
Yes, my oldest sister's son. Yep.
Okay. I mean, did you kind of see it in him, or were you the main ones kind of training him?
Yeah, so he basically growing up in his earlier lived with us, you know,
Hmm.
his grandmother, my mother, my parents. And so yeah, so I basically he grew up playing ball with us, you know, in the park, pick up ball and uh, little league, when he was young, he didn't really there wasn't a whole lot of training going on. It was just, back then it was basically if you're doing something wrong, don't do this. We didn't really there wasn't a lot of formal or sophisticated training going on. But he was even at a young age, at least I could tell, he was a little different than everybody else.
Hmm.
10 years old making diving catches and he was actually really everybody thought he was going to play football because
Hmm.
he was a heck of a running back as a football player. But yeah, even from at least for me, from day one, I could see he was different than everybody else.
Oh, did he play what? Was he signed out of high school or out of college?
No, it was his role was a little different. So at around 11 or 12, uh, my one of my brothers who was in the army, he was stationed in Germany, and so he did came back to California for a while, and they stationed him in Augusta, Georgia.
Hmm.
So he was home for probably about a month, and his mother at the time, she was kind of doing her own thing because he was living with us. So when my brother was home, he used to take us to the park and throw with us, play catch with us, and all that kind of stuff. So when was on his way back, he was going to drive back to Augusta. He decided to take Ray with him,
Hmm.
so he can give him some little bit more of attention because my parents. I'm the youngest of 10 kids, so and then we
Oh
got a
wow.
bunch of his nephews and nieces. So he was kind of I don't want to say falling through the cracks, but he probably wasn't getting the attention that he should have been getting at that
Right.
time. So my brother decided to take him with him. He already had two kids. And basically from 11, 12 years old, my brother raised him. So he went to Augusta, Georgia with him. Um, when my brother got out of the army, Ray was a sophomore in high school, I think.
Hmm.
So he came back to California. Uh, and Ray actually went to Compton High School his sophomore year. Around that time, my brother had become a professional umpire,
Okay.
right? So he got assigned. I was playing pro ball myself at the time. He got assigned to the California League his second
Hmm.
year, which is 84. Yeah. And I played there in the California League the same year. So when he was stationed in Modesto, California, Central California. So when he moved to Modesto, basically Ray, after his sophomore year of high school, asked if he can go live with him again. So he moved up to Modesto and basically, spent the rest of his uh, high school days in Modesto, played football and baseball. So he didn't get drafted out of high school. He got drafted. He ended up, again, everybody thought he was going to be a football player. He ended up going to Modesto JC,
Okay.
played football there one year, and then he actually got drafted in the winter draft out of Modesto Junior College.
Oh.
Back when they still had the winter draft. Might have been one of the last years they had it. But yeah, he got drafted in the winter draft in 86, 85 or 86, somewhere in there. 87 maybe.
Yeah, because he became I know he was at least a one-time All-Star because he was in the NL Home Run Derby that
Yeah.
one year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, was that kind of proud to see your kinfolk? You watched him come up. Was that like one of your prouder moments as a family?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we uh proud of him just like everybody's proud of everybody in our family.
Hmm.
But yeah, of course. You always want to see your family do well and for him to do as well as he did, especially where he came from, because he had some challenges for a little bit of challenges for a minute,
Hmm.
when he was in high school. But yeah, he came a long way. So yeah, we were all proud of him.
Wow. One thing I always remember about him is that you remember the cookie cutter stadiums from the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
Back then, it was called Riverfront Stadium. I think it might have went through a quick change, Synergy Field or something. But long story short, he put two in the upper deck in the same game off of Chris Reitsma while he was playing for the Cardinals. I'll never forget that game because I was over behind the third base dugout, thinking I'm gonna get a foul ball over this way. I might even be a young adult or right in late high school.
Right.
And boom, he hit two in the upper deck of right field out there. It was just like, just to see a ball go that fast, that high, that far, it was like, wow. And then see that it was a brother doing it, because he was like pretty much, there was Bonds and Griffey. He was like that next level of outfielder
Right.
during his era with
Yeah.
those guys. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he could do it all for the most part. Steal bases, hit for power, hit for average. So yeah, he had a really good career. So
Yes. Now let me talk about two guys you say you played with. Talk about these guys, Daryl and Eric. Daryl Strawberry, Eric Davis. You played with or against them coming up through South Central LA. What do you remember, any stories about them?
I just remember them being really, really good. I played with Eric since I was like 11 or 12. A guy, Gerald Pickens, used to pick us up and go play in these tournaments. Pick up kids all over the city, and we go play tournaments. So I've been playing it with Eric since we were like 11 to 12,
Mm-hmm.
and then Daryl when we got to high school. But we all knew of each other, played against each other, played with each other. Again, it was Eric, Daryl, Chris Brown, Chili Davis.
Oh yeah.
It's Kerwin Danley, the umpire.
Okay.
He was one of the guys from the area. There's a whole bunch of names I could mention that became big leaguers or high draft picks. We all played against each other. Again, it was seeing that kind of talent. It was normal.
Wow.
In fact, when Straw or Daryl got drafted, he was the first pick in the draft. It actually kind of surprised me because growing up, at least in my eyes, Eric Davis was the better player.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know why he was. Now I know why he was first pick, but at the time, I was like, Eric was by hands down for me anyway, was the best player in our area. But so yeah, so it was surprising to me to see at that time that Daryl was the first pick, and because Eric didn't go until like the 8th round or something.
Also, do tell, why was he the number one pick? You see?
Well, I think it was mostly because everybody thought he was going to go play basketball in college.
Oh,
I think that was the reason, because he was big time basketball. But actually, him and Daryl were both big time basketball players. But if for whatever reason they thought Eric was going to go play basketball in college, so he went later in the draft, but he ended up signing.
right.
And of course, the rest is history.
What now? He's Baron Davis's uncle, right? The basketball player. Is that true?
Haven't heard that one, but
Was that a rumor? Okay.
Baron is actually younger, so I don't know if he might be Baron's uncle, but the Baron's actually younger than we are.
Right. Absolutely.
But he's from there too. He went to Santa Monica High School, so it's very possible.
Oh, so that California summer ball must have just been brutal. You hit 300, you would probably consider it good then.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a couple of quick stories. So my other brother that I was just talking about, he played, and it's called Jackie Robinson Stadium, where we all played Connie Mack.
Mm-hmm.
But during the era when my brother played, a scout from Arizona State came to watch one of his potential recruits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember who it might have been. Kenny Landreau that he came to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he came to watch him play, and this was a summer league game, before he left the game that night, he offered 7 guys scholarships.
7 guys?
7 guys. He offered right there on the spot. He offered 7 guys scholarships. All right. So one of those guys was Eddiemurray, Kenny Landreau, a guy named Bobby Pate, who played in the Big Zoo with the Astros. I think he offered Chet Lemon. So there's a few other guys, but yeah, he offered 7 guys scholarships. Daryl Jackson actually ended up going to Arizona State. But yeah, they were all on the field together.
I mean, just Compton. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, so that same year, the team 72, the team that won the Connie Mack World Series is called the Compton Mohawks.
Okay.
right? So from that team, 10 guys, 9 starters and 1 guy off the bench, all made it to the big leagues. Right. So they had, and so I just named some of the guys they had on the team. They had Eddiemurray, Ozzie Smith, Daryl Jackson, Kenny Landreau, Chet Lemon, Gary Ward, Gary Alexander. I think Bobby Pate was on that team, played in the big leagues. And Eddie Murray, Rich Murray, who also played in the big leagues, was on that team. So these are just guys on one team. There are also other guys in the league that got drafted, played in the big leagues. Guys, I don't know if you heard of Ellis Valentine.
Who's Ellis Valentine?
Yeah, he played with the Mets, played with the Expos.
I vaguely remember him. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the best arms ever
Mm-hmm.
in the big leagues. Yeah, he was in the league that year. George Foster was in the league. Came out of there. Enos Cabell, Bob Watson. I can go on and on. Reggie Smith, Daryl came out of there. So
Lonnie Smith, is he from there?
Lonnie Smith he was in the league that same year. Yep. Lonnie Smith. Yep.
Let's see the Compton football or Compton baseball player is kind of like I guess is at one point, hopefully it still is as competitive as the New York City point guard is. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not like that anymore, but yeah, at one time it was like that. In fact, Daryl Jackson, who I just mentioned, when he got drafted by the Twins, and he went right to Double-A out of college. And his first start as a minor league, he threw a no-hitter. And he said he thought pro ball was going to be easy because he said he faced a tougher lineup when he was in college and when he was playing summer ball in Compton.
Wow.
Because when he pitched at Arizona State, so he was facing guys like Huey Brooks and Kenny Landreau and Steve Bannister and a whole bunch of guys at Arizona State that ended up going to the big leagues.
So let me ask you this. Well, like I said the last time, the world, most of us know about Compton, California because of NWA and the gang life. Was it hard, to maintain composure and stay away from that kind of stuff, growing up, or was it hadn't taken over yet?
Was it hard to stay? It wasn't hard for me to stay away from it because I just had no interest in it. But back when when I was a kid, the gang was over there and all that stuff. But usually, if you were an athlete, gangbangers would leave you alone.
Okay.
They always gave the athletes a pass. So it wasn't kind of like it wasn't like it is today, where some of these kids just don't care.
Right.
I guess the gangbangers then, if you want to call it that, they had a little bit of, I guess, some ethics, or what you want to call it, if that even makes sense. But if you were an athlete, they wouldn't bother you.
Okay.
They give you a pass. You can walk through different neighborhoods, whatever, if they knew you were an athlete.
Right.
But you knew where to go, knew who to mess with, who to hang out with. I've seen all kind of stuff. I can remember being at the park playing pickup with my nephew and some other guys. We were just playing pickup baseball, and a guy comes running past in the outfield. He's running. I don't know what he's running. He's sprinting. Turn around, and I turn back around. There's another guy chasing him with a gun, shooting at him.
Oh no!
All right, so we broke for hid behind the press box, and then when they left, we went home. But so they ran in the direction that we lived, so we had to walk around like the long way to get home, just so we don't run into it, because we didn't know what was going on. So
exactly.
With stuff like that, stories like that all the time. But like I said, we knew how to. At least for me, I knew how to avoid all that stuff, because at an early age I wanted to be a baseball player. I didn't want to be a gangbanger. So it was easy for me to avoid, and I knew, all those guys who were big gangbangers, some of them were pretty good athletes. They just chose a different life.
Right.
Than the rest of us.
Right. Oh, wow. And we're glad you're here today with us, talk with us here. Again, folks, sitting here, we're talking with Carl Nichols. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's why I laughed when I heard that Yellow was part of NWA, because he was nowhere close to. And again, I'm not to talk bad about it, because he was a good guy. But when I saw him in NWA, I literally laughed, because he was the furthest thing away from a gangbanger.
From the story of the legend, if I remember right, basically the only guy that was a real tough guy out of all those was Eazy-E, and he was known for the drugs, but the rest of them were just kind of just
Yeah,
guys living in the in the neighborhood.
correct. Yeah, because like Ice Cube, for example, Ice Cube got he got bused to the valley to go to school. He didn't even go to school in the hood. He went to school in the valley.
See,
So
that's probably why he got the great vocabulary to write those rhymes.
yeah, he went to what do you call it? Some kind of art school out in the valley. So yeah.
See, so he basically went to the fame school of Compton. Like Fame on the TV show. Remember that Fame?
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't in Compton. It was in the valley. So if you know anything about LA, so if you, out in the basically out when you say when you say in the valley, it just means with white people.
Right, exactly.
So he got they had busing back then, so he got bused out to the valley to go to school. So he didn't go to school in his neighborhood.
Grew up both parents and whatnot. Pretty
right.
decent.
Yeah, he had both parents. He had both parents at home and all that good stuff. So
let me talk to you about another California athlete from your era, high school era, Barry Bonds. Was he in high school when you were playing?
Barry grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco.
Oh, so did y'all hear much about him? I mean, other than the fact that he was, Bobby's son?
Well, again, back then there was no PG, there was no internet, so you didn't really hear about guys outside of your area.
Okay.
I mean, he's a couple of years younger than me, but no, his dad, Bobby, grew up in Southern California in Riverside.
Right.
And I growing up, I had heard, I knew guys that knew him or saw him play. I heard stories about his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And, his dad was a real deal. He just didn't live up to his potential for various reasons. But ability-wise, Bobby Bonds was as good as anybody that ever played, as far as ability goes. He just never played up to his potential. But I didn't really hear about Barry until he was in college.
Right.
So, I think he was on the. I don't remember if he was on the Olympic team or not, but I first heard of him when he got drafted. He got drafted by the Pirates.
Right. I want to say he was. I vaguely remember that Olympic stuff. That something just kind of jogged my memory about that when you said that. Like I do remember.
So the '84 team, they had Mark McGuire was on the team, Olivia McDowell, B.J. Surhoff. There was a bunch of guys that ended up playing in the big leagues that were on the '84 Olympic team. I think I don't remember. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Barry Bonds was on that team as well.
See,
I could be wrong, but
let me ask you this. If you don't want to answer, I understand. It's not going to be about PEDs, nothing like that.
Right.
But when I see me personally, you got Barry and you got Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Jr. From Cincinnati. One's portrayed in the media as a complete jerk off. The other guy's the kid, and everybody loves him. I see the same guy. And correct me if I'm wrong. I see the same guy. Both grew up with their dads in the house. We talk about that, the importance of, a man introduce you to the sport. Not only is their dad in the house, he is a major leaguer and an all-star, so they're growing up pretty affluent. So they probably didn't have a lot of black peers growing up, either one of them. How did the media able to make one the bad guy and one the good guy, or is that just how they were?
So in Barry's case, well, first of all, anybody that I've talked to that was teammates with Barry Bonds had nothing but good stuff to say about it.
Right.
If you talk to Charlie Hayes, I talked to him a few times. Charlie Hayes loves him. He's the best teammate ever. So, and again, the stuff that I know about him, he's a good teammate. Barry's issue with the media was, and Eddie Murray kind of had this issue with the media as well, is they write a bunch of stuff about you that's not true. As much of a peon as I was, I experienced that as well. So, I guess with him, once they wrote stuff that he didn't like, he just stopped talking to them. Right. So when you don't talk to the media, the press, they just write bad stuff about you. Because they that's the only power they have over you is what they write in the paper. So they end up writing a lot of bad stuff, and they always assume the worst things about you because you won't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's all that was with him. He didn't talk to the media. And so they vilified him. Right. Now, when Griffey came up, Griffey was happy go lucky, always smiling. But eventually the media turned on him.
They did.
Right.
His hometown media.
Right. Right. So, so again, both those guys are great guys, great players, obviously. It's just the media, they decide who they want to be a good guy and who they want to be a bad guy. It's that simple, because again, Eddie Murray is a perfect example that media used to write bad stuff about it. And you couldn't ask for a better guy, a better teammate than Eddie Murray. But if you read the stuff in the media about him, he was just this angry old, black dude, and that couldn't be far from the case. I mean, further from the case. But so yeah, it's just the media guys, they have to sell papers or subscriptions or whatever, so they write what they write, and it just comes with the territory sometimes.
Mm-hmm. See, yeah, that's what I said about Barry Bonds. Like, how bad of a guy is he?
No,
he does 5 years in jail for me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So yeah, with Barry, like for example, I don't know if you remember he had when he grabbed Jeff Kent by the throat in the dugout.
Yes.
No. Do you know the story behind it?
He was like going, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Kent was being disrespectful to Dusty or something like that.
Yeah. So again, when it happened, again, they were vilifying Barry Bonds instead of telling the whole story. The story was Jeff Kent was messing with one of the younger players. I think the kid might have been a rookie or something, and just getting all over the kid. And Barry stepped in to defend the kid from Jeff. And then I guess Jeff said something, and Barry grabbed him by the throat or whatever. Right. So yeah, so it wasn't Barry being bad. It was actually the other guy being a bad guy, and Barry coming to his teammates' defense. Right. That was the whole story, but it didn't get told in the media.
Right.
Right. They try to portray him as the bad guy. So that's just example of what can happen if the person with the pen is not your favorite person.
Pen is mightier than the sword, as they say.
Yep.
We've talked about Griffey Jr., talked about Barry Bonds, talked about Rickey Henderson.
Uh-huh.
Are either those three guys in your all-time baseball outfield, or either from your era or all-time?
It's just hard to pick a all-time team. It really just boils down to who you like the most. Because any of those guys would work in the outfield. Because I see those lists all the time. So it's funny because when people pick all-time teams based, when they pick it just based on putting a person at each position, Rickey Henderson never gets picked.
Right.
But when you write down a lineup, all-time lineup, then he's always a leadoff hitter.
Yes.
He's the greatest leadoff hitter ever. Right. But again, you can't narrow it down to three guys. It really just boils down to who you like the most. There's just so many, especially outfielders, Rickey Henderson and Hank Aaron and Willie Mays and Babe Ruth and Ted Williams and Roberto Clemente. So you can't narrow it down to just one or two, three guys. It really just becomes a matter of who you personally like the most. And whoever you pick, you're probably going to be right. So
I like that. I like that. I'm very diplomatic of you there, Mr.
Well, it's the truth, because I try to, I think about that all the time about who would I pick because outfield, and then I pick this guy, but man, what about this guy? And then and so it's just hard it's impossible to pick.
Right. Now, okay. Well, so one last thought before we go here. Last time we talked to you, talked about your facility in Atlanta. Want to tell us a little bit about that? The name of it, and a little bit about it.
Yeah, we haven't settled on the name yet. But basically, it's going to be on the south side of Atlanta because there's really nothing on that side of town for the kids, the indoor facility for the kids to go to. We're gonna we're basically going to have a little we are going to have like the latest technology in there, which again, a lot of our kids don't have access to, especially on this side that side of town. If you go on the north side of town where East Cobb and some of the other facilities are, there's an indoor facility on every block.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the kids on the south side have to drive, an hour to get to it. And just we're just trying to give kids give our kids access not just to the equipment, but also to the right information.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because even though they're driving over to these other places to get training, they're still a lot of them aren't getting the right information. Because I see it all the time. I talk to scouts all the time, and they talk about what these kids are lacking, even though they think they're getting it from these other places.
What do you mean by information? If you don't mind, expound on
just playing the game correctly. I coached these last couple of years, coaching these supposedly high profile players. And they don't know stuff like just simple, like hitting the cutoff man, or being in the right place, lined up, in double cutoffs or running the bases correctly. Just little stuff like that that makes a big difference. That scouts are always talking to me about, asking, why aren't these kids doing these things? The stuff they should have learned in Little League, right? Because a lot of these kids, because when some of these fancy facilities, they cherry pick our kids. They take the better kids, at least, a lot of the other kids just hanging. Right. So a lot of these kids, they go to these teams, and because they're so physically gifted, they get away with a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're just better athletes. And they don't get corrected on a lot of stuff that they do. Either one, because, the coach doesn't know what he's doing, or a lot of times they're afraid to piss the kid off because they don't want him to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So they just let them create these bad habits, and then I end up seeing them, and then I'm like, a lot of because a lot of depending on who you talk to, a lot of folks might think I'm a little harsh, and it's not that I'm harsh. I just make kids accountable, no matter who you are. Right? Because I know, especially for our kids, when you get to the next level, you're not going to be able to get away with a lot of the stuff that you're doing.
Right.
Right. And, so I tell them, I don't care if you like me or not, but you're going to respect what I tell you.
Absolutely.
Right. And then eventually you'll find out what I was talking about.
Right.
So for me, just trying to teach them, play the game. Basically, when I tell kids, well, the stuff that I'm trying to tell you or teach you is going to allow you to be successful at the major league level. This is what major leaguers are doing. All right. So, so a little different than what probably they're being told or what they're being allowed to do or whatever. And then, again, the facility is going to be a place where they can come and get the right information and learn how to not only survive, but excel in this game. Because again, it's with us, it's a little bit different navigating through. It's hard for everybody. But our experience is a little bit different than everybody else's. So, for me, I try to teach them what to expect, what's going to happen, how to deal with it correctly, don't do some of the, stupid stuff that I used to do. And so that you can survive and thrive, even though the odds are against you. So hopefully that's once we open, we can get those kids coming over and then you're obviously going to be open. Everybody's going to be welcome, obviously, but because who's in charge, we're going to be able to give them share our experiences with that they're going to go through at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's funny because I just did an interview with a guy, a former scout, who wants to bring back some modernized version of the Negro Leagues.
Right.
Just real quick, what do you think of something like that?
It will be great.
Uh-huh.
But our biggest issue is we don't work together.
Wow.
And I've been saying that for years. We have a lot of power.
Uh-huh.
but we just cannot work. We don't work together like we're supposed to, and not just with baseball, but that's in general.
You mean black folks?
Black folks, yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah, because the Negro Leagues was a powerful thing at the time. It had its own economy and all that stuff. Because like most people don't realize, they didn't bring in Jackie Robinson because it was the right thing to do.
Right.
They brought Jackie Robinson in because they were trying to get some of that money that the Negro Leagues, for Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Dodgers, whatever, Ebbets Field.
The Brooklyn Bums, yeah.
Yes, yeah, because they were selling out because when the Dodgers were on the road, the Brooklyn team, the Negro Leagues would come in and use the stadium, and they would sell out.
Yes.
And so Branch Rickey wanted some of that money, and that's all it was about. It wasn't about giving the blacks that opportunity, because Jackie Robinson wasn't even the best player. I mean, everybody knows this by now, but he wasn't even close to the best player in the league.
Right.
He was just better suited to go through what he had to go through. But it was all about money. It wasn't about doing the right thing. Because again, the Negro Leagues, they had their own leagues. They stayed at the black hotels, ate at the black restaurants. So the money got recycled through the community.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it would be great if we could do it. I'd be 100% behind it. But like I said, we just have the hardest time working together. That's been our issue for a long time.
Oh man, well, I wish we had more time. We gotta bring another one back here soon, Mr. Nichols, because we got some more stuff we got to talk about, especially as far as that goes.
Yeah.
The Negro League and things like that. Are you down to come back and holler at us again?
Yeah, of course.
I definitely appreciate it and gracious for having you, Mr. Nichols. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Like I said, always a pleasure to talk with Mr. Nichols, the backstop of the show. He will cut you down on the bases. Ask Kirk Gibson,
Right.
and ask the King.
Right.
Rickey. But yeah, always a pleasure, Mr. Nichols. I appreciate you spending some time with us.
All right, yeah, no problem.
Hey, take care, buddy.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, now.